Hello. Today I'd like to share with you 3 things that I have learned over the years about Tadasana. Part 1 of this is that if you look at me from side view when we are standing in Tadasana or regular standing on the streets and all, you can see that my whole structure is seated at the back 1/3 of the foot and there's 2/3 in front, which means our weight bearing position is mostly at the back end of the foot where the calcaneus is, which is the most dense piece of bone. So where you can see this back 1/3 of the foot carry most of the weight and the rest of the weight distribute across the front of the foot. And therefore, when we stand in Tadasana, to be mindful that the weight is a little bit more in the heels than we think. Now, the pelvis over the leg position. So know that the pelvis is the main junction that connects the upper half body and the lower half. So know that the pelvis needs to be in its neutral position, therefore neutral spine position, in order to load and bear weight and carry the body in an upright position. Know that the sacrum is not at a flat surface. The sacrum has a natural slant, which allows for a natural lordotic curve in the lumbar spine. So when we stand with our pelvis neutral, when we talk about neutral, the pelvis is actually in a slight anterior tilt position. So this is posterior tilt, this is anterior tilt. But find a position for your pelvis where there is no compression in the lower back. We're not attempting to stick the bum out all the way that you feel a compression and discomfort in the lower back, but just enough, but also not the other opposite direction where the tailbone is tucked under. That tenses up the abdominal organs, like literally heart around the organs, and also heart around the hip flexors. So it's just find somewhere in between where the pelvis is sitting over the weight of the legs, mainly in the heels, and there's a slight lordotic curve with a slant of the sacrum, where the pubic bone is lower than the tailbone, away from the belly button. Part 3. This is to do with the tone and tension in the body when we stand in Tadasana. So when we stand upright, we need to recruit just enough tension in the front body and just enough tension in the back body in order for us to balance, not to fall forwards or fall back. Know that if I completely relax my front body tone and muscles, eventually I'm going to fall backwards all the way onto the floor. Whereas if I completely relax my back body tone and tension muscles, I will eventually fall forwards on my face on the floor. So there is an equal amount of engagement between the front body engagement and back body engagement in order for me to balance without over tensing the front or the back body. So play around. I suggest to play around standing with most of the weight in your heels now, pelvis position that we talked about in the last post, and also play around with shifting weight forwards and back between the balls of your feet and your heels. And find a position where it's sustainable, where there is minimal optimal effort in your Tadasana.